thousands of us. There are a few thousand of people from the old Republican world willing to speak the truth, limiting the power of the state.
Lincoln Project are confident that Donald Trump understands his position.
Sue Fox News for running a Lincoln Project. Perverts should not be allowed to false advertise, and Fox News should not allow it to happen. Seawall.
What if I told you that while Trump was yelling America first, your bank account was screaming help? The Lincoln Project's new ads are spilling the tea, and it's hotter than Trump's temper. These aren't just ads, they're a wake-up call with a side of savage burns. If you thought Trump's hair was a disaster, wait till you see what he did to our economy. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Picture this: Donald Trump, the reality TV star turned president, strutting onto the world stage with his trusty smartphone in hand. He's ready to tweet his way to diplomatic greatness, one poorly punctuated message at a time. It's like watching a toddler try to navigate a fancy dinner party. You know it's gonna be a disaster, but you just can't look away. As Trump starts firing off tweets left and right, other world leaders begin to give America the side eye. They're probably wondering if we've collectively lost our marbles, or if someone slipped something funky into the White House water supply. It's like we went from being the cool kid at the international lunch table to the one who eats glue and talks to their imaginary friend. But wait, it gets better. Trump decides that the best way to show America's strength is by pushing the Prime Minister of Montenegro aside at a NATO meeting.
Every senator who voted to confirm anti-vaccine nut RFK Jr. has the best health care in the world. Doctors on call who will be at their offices in minutes.
Create havoc. These are bad people. I know everything they're doing. I know every move they make. I get it. It's tougher. I think it's probably, in many ways, it's tougher on my family than it is in me.
Because nothing says respected world leader like shoving your allies out of the way for a photo op.
We know what we saw. We know what we heard. It wasn't spontaneous. They came prepared for battle.
I know nothing about QAnon. I know nothing about it. I know nothing about the indictment. I know nothing about WikiLeaks. I have no idea who these women are.
It's the diplomatic equivalent of yelling first in a YouTube comment section. And let's not forget Trump's brilliant strategy for handling North Korea. Instead of, actual diplomacy, he decides to nickname Kim Jong-un Rocket Man, because nothing diffuses nuclear tensions quite like playground insults. It's like he thought international relations was just a big game of yo mama jokes, but with actual nukes involved. Meanwhile, America's longtime allies start treating us like that friend who keeps showing up to parties uninvited. The one who always brings expired cheese dip and insists on doing karaoke even though no one asked. It's almost like constantly insulting and threatening your friends isn't a great way to maintain relationships. Who knew? But Trump wasn't content with just ruining our friendships. No, he had to take it to the next level with his Twitter diplomacy. Forget carefully worded diplomatic statements. Trump decided that the best way to conduct foreign policy was by threatening war in 280 characters or less. It's like he thought the nuclear option referred to his Twitter feed. Things got so bad that world leaders reportedly started playing Trump bingo during summits. They'd mark off squares for each of his diplomatic faux pas. Called a country a shithole. Check. Insulted a world leader's height. Check. Confused two Asian countries. Double check. It's not every day you see global diplomacy reduced to a drinking game, but Trump found a way. All this Twitter tirade turned America's global reputation into a punchline faster than you can say, cough F. We went from being the leader of the free world to that guy at the party who everyone's trying to avoid eye contact with. It's like Trump took America's international standing, put it in a blender, and hit puree. A 2020 survey showed that only 31% of people in 13 countries had confidence in Trump to do the right thing in world affairs. That's down from 64% for Obama in 2016. Apparently, people aren't huge fans of leaders who treat global diplomacy like a rowdy episode of Jerry Springer. One diplomat summed it up perfectly. It's like he thinks international relations is a game of chicken, but forgot that other countries also have steering wheels. It's the diplomatic equivalent of playing chess while everyone else is playing, well, actual diplomacy. Hey, remember when Trump promised to make American farmers richer than a field of golden corn? Well, turns out his great trade deals were about as useful as a chocolate teapot in a heat wave.
Body armor, chemical weapons, zip ties. Their mission: to overturn an American election.
They don't care.
I said, and they got me. I said, I want to wear it on stage.
Our orange friend decided to play tariff tag with China, and guess who got left holding the bag? Yep, our hardworking farmers. So picture this: Trump strutting around like he's the king of deals, telling everyone he's gonna make trade sweeter than corn syrup. Meanwhile, China's looking at our soybeans like they're yesterday's leftovers. Suddenly, farmers are wondering if they can pay their mortgages with Trump's tweets about winning. Spoiler alert, banks don't accept retweets as currency. Now, you might be thinking, pause, but Trump said he'd make everything great again. Well, he certainly made something great again: the pile of unsold soybeans sitting in American barns. Before Trump decided to play trade war general, soybean exports to China were booming. Farmers were happier than pigs in mud, but after Trumpy slapped on those tariffs, soybean sales to China dropped faster than Trump's approval ratings at a fact-checkers convention. And it wasn't just the soybean folks feeling the pinch. Pork producers saw their profits vanish quicker than Trump's hair in a strong wind. The art of the deal became the art of the squeal as farmers watched their livelihoods go up in smoke.
According to a new report from the Washington Post, farmers across the country are on the hook for millions of dollars.
Trump's tariffs hit American businesses harder than a combine harvester on steroids. But hey, at least other countries were having fun, right? While America was left standing alone like the kid nobody picked for dodgeball, the rest of the world was playing musical chairs with trade agreements. And guess what? Every time the music stopped, America was the one without a seat. Some farmers started wondering if they should plant "Make America Great Again" signs instead of crops. At least then they'd have something to show for their troubles. But sadly, you can't feed a family on empty promises and red hats. Now, you might be thinking, surely the government did something to help. Well, they did throw some subsidies at the problem, but for many farmers, it was like trying to put out a forest fire with a water pistol. Too little, too late, and about as effective as Trump's attempts at building a wall.
Watching the power grab and illegality going on in Washington, it's easy to feel helpless, like there's nothing you can do.
One farmer summed it up perfectly: these trade wars hit our hardworking farmers harder than a golf ball off one of Trump's errant tee shots. Ouch, that's gotta sting more than getting slapped with a wet soybean. The overall mood in farm country, let's just say it was less America first and more America worst. Farmers felt more betrayed than a turkey on Thanksgiving. They'd been promised prosperity, but instead got a face full of financial manure. It's like Trump thought he could solve complex international trade issues by yelling "You're fired" at China. Remember when Trump promised us all a golden shower of wealth? Well, folks, it turns out that shower was more like a leaky faucet for most of us. While the 1% were doing backstroke in their new money pools, the rest of us were left wondering if we could afford a kiddie pool from the dollar store.
His approval for handling of the economy shows its sharp decline from the start of his presidency, and that is unsurprising.
Trump's big idea for helping the middle class was like giving billionaires an all-you-can-eat buffet and telling the rest of us to fight over the crumbs. It's as if he thought trickle-down economics meant the rich would get so full they'd accidentally drop some cash on the way to their private jets. Speaking of jets, the wealth gap under Trump grew so wide you could park all his failed casinos in it and still have room for his ego. Meanwhile, regular folks were left wondering if their huge tax cut could buy them an extra pack of ramen.
As we know, Trump campaigned, really focused on the economy, really focused on fighting inflation. That was a major part of his promise.
Spoiler alert, it couldn't. Trump's economic plan started looking less like Art of the Deal and more like Hunger Games Capital Edition. You know, where the rich get richer and the rest of us are left fighting over who gets to eat the last stale cracker. It's like he thought the American dream was everyone getting to be his caddy for a day. Middle-class Americans started checking their couch cushions for loose change and lost dreams.
A large number of Americans are now making the link between tariffs and higher prices on those goods that are coming into the country.
Hey honey, I found a nickel in our hopes for retirement. Some folks were so desperate they considered starting a GoFundMe to pay for their GoFundMe fees. But don't worry, Trump assured us this was all part of the plan. You see, when billionaires get more money, they'll obviously use it to give everyone else a raise, right? Because that's totally how rich people think. You know what would make me happy? Giving away all this extra cash. The reality was a bit different. During Trump's presidency, the wealth gap grew faster than his list of nicknames for political opponents. The top 1% saw their bank accounts swell up like Trump's ego after a rally, while the middle class experienced growth so minimal it needed a microscope to be seen. Trump's tax cuts were like a game of financial musical chairs.
And his agenda so far has been focused on other things. And in fact, many of his agenda items would actually raise rather than lower prices.
But the billionaires already owned all the seats. The average American was left standing, searching for loose change and wondering if they could sell their "I survived Trump's economy" t-shirt for a profit. Experts warned that Trump's policies could lead to long-term consequences, creating a wealth disparity deeper than the Grand Canyon. But hey, at least we all got to watch the stock market numbers go up on TV, right? It's almost as good as having actual money. The data showed that the benefits of Trump's tax cuts didn't trickle down to the average citizen. It's almost like giving more money to people who already have more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes doesn't magically create jobs. Who would have thought? Critics argued that Trump's economic policies left middle and lower income Americans with financial stability about as secure as a wig in a hurricane. But Trump assured us this was all part of making America great again. Maybe he meant great for people who already own yachts. Alright folks, it's time to talk about how Trump made America great again at being the kid no one wants to play with at recess. Remember when he promised to make other countries respect us? Well, he sure did make them pay attention, but not in the way he probably hoped. Trump's idea of foreign policy was like watching a toddler try to make friends in a sandbox. Instead of sharing his toys, he decided to throw them at everyone else. First up on his hit list, the Paris Climate Accord. Trump pulled out of that faster than a cat from a bathtub. He basically told the world, climate change. Never heard of her. The rest of the planet was left scratching their heads, wondering if America had suddenly decided to move to another planet. But wait, there's more. Trump wasn't done breaking up with the world. He also ditched the Iran nuclear deal. You know, that pesky little agreement meant to stop Iran from getting nukes? Trump looked at it and said, nah, I can do better.
Potentially more sense than Trump's speech about the Iran nuclear deal, meaning an iPhone would be a more coherent president of the United States.
Spoiler alert, he didn't. Our allies were about as thrilled with this move as a vegan at a steakhouse. Now, you'd think that maybe, just maybe, world leaders would still want to play nice with America. After all, we're supposed to be the cool kid on the global playground, right? Wrong. Turns out, when you act like a bull in a china shop, people tend to lock up their fine dinnerware. International leaders started looking at Trump's approach to diplomacy the way you'd look at a raccoon trying to perform brain surgery.
But the share of Americans who think that the economy is on the wrong track rose to 53%. That's a 10 percentage point.
With a mix of horror and fascination, one leader, who shall remain nameless to protect the snarky, described Trump's foreign policy as erratic and unpredictable. In diplomatic speak, that's like saying your cooking tastes like feet. It's not a compliment. This unpredictability made other countries about as eager to work with us as you'd be to pet a rabid squirrel. So what did the rest of the world do while America was busy throwing its weight around? They decided to have their own party and conveniently forgot to send us an invite. Countries started buddying up with each other, leaving America standing alone in the corner like the smelly kid at prom. It was less United States of America and more uninvited States of America. By the end of Trump's term, America's global street cred had taken more hits than a piñata at a birthday party. We went from being the country everyone wanted to hang out with to the one that makes people suddenly remember they have to wash their hair when we call.
The percentage of Americans who disapprove of his job performance is up to 51%, and that's a 10 percentage point increase over the past month.
Our traditional allies started looking at us the way you look at that friend who always borrows money and never pays it back. Trump's America First policy turned into America Alone faster than you can say café. We were about as popular on the world stage as a telemarketer at dinner time. Other countries were playing Who Wants to Make a Deal with America? And the answer was crickets. Turns out when you treat international relations like a reality TV show, the only prize you win is global side-eye. Well folks, it looks like Trump's grand plan to make America great again turned out to be about as successful as a chocolate fire guard. Instead of a shining city on a hill, America ended up looking more like a tacky casino where the house always wins. And by house, I mean Trump's buddies with the fattest wallets. You've gotta wonder, are we really tired of all this winning? Or are we just exhausted from trying to keep up with Trump's version of success? It's like he was playing Monopoly with the world, but instead of collecting properties, he was busy alienating allies and racking up IOUs.
And that does show that economic worries are there. They're not going away, and they may be starting to take a toll on Trump.
Maybe it's time we gave our brains a workout and thought long and hard about who we want representing us on the global stage. Do we want someone who treats foreign policy like a reality TV show, or someone who actually knows the difference between diplomacy and a Twitter rant? The choice is yours, America. Let's hope we don't end up with egg on our faces again.